Hi, I'm Sarah and welcome to episode 1 of my 5-part beginner crochet series. Over these 5 videos, I'll be teaching you all the essential beginner concepts you need to start crocheting, from basic stitches and then all the way up to reading patterns. Today, in episode 1, we're learning the very first skills you need: how to make a slip knot and chain stitches. These are the foundation of every single crochet project. So if you're completely new to crochet, this is the perfect place to start. Don't worry if it feels awkward at first, everyone begins here. And with a little practice, these movements will become second nature. You'll need some worsted weight yarn and a crochet hook. I recommend 5mm. Let me show you step by step exactly how to do this. First, let's talk about how to hold your crochet hook. There are 2 main ways people hold hooks, and both are perfectly fine. Use whichever feels more comfortable to you. The first way is called a pencil grip. Hold the hook like you would a pencil when writing. Your thumb and your index finger grip the flat part of the hook, and it rests against the side of your middle finger. See how my thumb is on top, my index finger on the bottom, and the hook rests right there against my middle finger. That gives you good control for detailed work. The second way is called the knife grip. Hold the hook like you would a knife when cutting food. Your whole hand wraps around the hook with your thumb on top, just like so. Try both and see what feels better. I'm going to be using the pencil grip for this video, but remember, there's no wrong way as long as you feel comfortable and in control. Next, let's talk about holding the yarn. This part trips up a lot of beginners, but once you get it, it's like riding a bike. I'm right-handed, so I hold my hook in my right hand and I control the yarn with my left hand. If you're left-handed, just reverse everything I'm showing you. Take the yarn and drape it over these 3 fingers, your pinky, your ring finger, and your middle finger. And then you're going to be pinching it between your middle finger and your index finger, and then you'll drape this tail end of the yarn over your index finger, just like this. And now I take these 2 fingers here, my pinky and my ring finger, and I'm going to grasp that working thread. This is the tail end where the yarn is cut off, and the working thread is what is attached to your ball of yarn. So again, I drape it across these 2 fingers and I pinch here and drape the tail end of the yarn over my index finger. And then I grip here with my pinky and my ring finger. This, you don't want it to be too tight so that you can't pull the yarn at all. You don't want to grip so hard with these fingers that you can't pull. And you also don't want it to be so loose that it could just, fall out of your fingers or and you have a loose tension. You want to have a firm grasp on it so that way you can still move the yarn easily, just not too tight and not too loose. So when I'm holding the yarn and I'm working with it like normal, what I'll be doing is moving this index finger up to create more space for my hook, and then it'll just slide through my fingers easily. That's what creates good tension. Again, not too loose, not too tight. You want to be able to move your index finger in and out, creating space and pulling the yarn through the fingers, just like that. Now to make a slip knot, we have, again, this tail end is the part that's cut off here, and then the working thread is what is attached to your ball of yarn. You want to lay, the easiest method that I have found for beginners is you just want to lay it out on a flat surface like this, and then you want to pick up this tail end and move it in a circle to create like a number 6. this tail end is on top of, it's over this working thread here. You see how it creates a little X here? It's almost like a little pretzel shape. That's what you want. Now, what you're going to do is just pick up where these two join, that X shape. Pick it up. And then just drape this tail underneath. So now you have this tail end underneath both sides of this circle. It looks like a 0 and a 1. That is how you're going to start your slip knot. So what you can do is just hold the tail and the working thread here, and then you just want to pick up this middle section and just pull on my right hand here to create this loop. You see you have a loop here, and then this is your slip knot. It can be easily tightened by pulling these two threads or loosened by pulling on this loop here. See? It's super easy. You don't want it to be too tight. You can just tighten here and then loosen by pulling on this loop. That is your slip knot. I'll demonstrate it one more time. You have your tail here and your working thread here. Taking your tail and draping it up like a 6, grabbing where they cross over and draping this tail underneath. You have that 0 and that 1. Now holding the tail here and the working thread here and just getting your finger underneath that 1 and pull up, and then grab these two pieces and just tighten. That's your slip knot. Now that you have your slip knot, you're going to combine holding your hook, holding the yarn with your left hand, or whichever, if you're right-handed or left-handed, you would hold it with your right hand. And you're going to be working with this slip knot to make a chain. The chain is a fundamental for crocheting. You will probably be doing it in almost every single crochet project. So it's definitely something that you want to make sure you get down and that you practice. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure the slip knot is small enough. I don't want it to be so tight on this hook that I can't really move it. It won't slide across easily. You also don't want it to be too loose that it could just easily fall off the hook. There's a lot of space in between the hook and this knot here. You don't want that. You want there to be just enough space for it to easily slide across the hook. You see there is a little bit of space here. That'll be good for when you're making your chains. So how I hold my yarn here is I will take this tail end here and I'm just going to hold it in my hand to get it out of the way as I'm doing my pencil grip. You can do the same if you're doing your knife grip or however you want to hold your hook. Okay, so now again with my left hand here, I'm draping it across these fingers, pinching here and moving it over my index finger. Okay, this is how you want to be set up when you're making your chain. So I personally like to grip with my index finger. I get the best tension and control that way. So how you're going to make this stitch is I want my loop on my hook here to stay in place. So I'm going to hold it, just, grasp it a little firmly so that it doesn't move with my index finger on my hook hand. And then I'm going to move my index finger on my left hand here out so that I get a little space to work with. Otherwise, if I'm this close, then my hook can't really get around very easily. So I want to move my index finger out, which is pulling on the yarn here. You see that? So I'm pushing it out so that way I'm getting a little space. And then I'm going to take my hook, and you see how the yarn is beneath the hook here? I'm going to wrap it up and around, so now that the yarn is over my hook. Now that I have that, I can remove this finger here, and I'm going to pinch with my index finger and my thumb, and I'm going to just slide my hook to the right and feed it through this loop here. It's easy. You don't necessarily want to have it the hook side facing you. You want to push it down so that way it can easily fit into the gap here. So I'm pointing my hook down so that way it can easily slide. Okay, now I have one chain. I'm just going to repeat this process now. So I still have it pinched here, so I'm going to take my index finger of my hook hand again. I'm holding this tail yarn here, and then I'm going to remove this index finger, push out, give myself some space for the hook, and then wrap it around, pinch again. I can remove this and then slide. So now I have more chains here. And then I'm just going to repeat this process. I'll show you slowly a few more times. So I'm holding it here, still grasping my yarn, move my index finger, wrap it around, pinch, and then moving this so that I'm free to move my hook here, and then guiding it through. Now you want to make sure again that these loops here are not too tight. I'll show you what happens when it's too tight. I'm going to tighten my hook here. Now when I wrap around, it's just a little bit harder for me to push my hook through. You can kind of hear it might be a little bit squeaky. That's how you know your tension might be too tight. So to fix that issue is I'm just going to pull up on my hook there. That's what creates the looseness of the loop there. And then if you were to pull this thread here, that makes it tighter. So again, you want there to be a little bit of space underneath this hook. You don't want it too loose where there's that much space. Just pull so that it can easily slide, and there's a little bit of space there for your hook to just easily glide through. So again, pinching here, and then I'm going to wrap around, pinch with my index and my thumb, and slide through. So you can always just change your tension with your hook if it comes out a little bit too tight or too loose. Now you can either, hold your index finger out like this, and then sometimes you can grip with your middle finger and your thumb to hold your work in place as you move the hook to scoop around, or you can just take your index finger and move it, around manually. I prefer to just move the hook, but play around with it, see what works best for you. So now we have some chains here. I'll just demonstrate a little bit more, and then again, as I'm holding my tail and my chain grows longer, I'll be holding that in my hand as well, but make sure to give yourself some slack here. So pinching, wrapping around, pulling through. There's definitely movement with both hands, but as you chain more and just get more comfortable with crochet, you'll be able to go faster and faster, and you'll understand what works best for you, what tension, how to hold your hook and your yarn. You'll learn. So just practice these chains over and over and over again, and you'll grow more comfortable with it. Just like that. So now I have a long chain here. I'll show you what the front and the back looks like. I'll just remove my hook here. Okay, this is the front side of your chain. You can see how there's V's. Each of these chains makes a little V shape. That's the front side. This back side, you can see, looks a little bit more like chain links. So you have like a little circle here and then a line going through the middle. This is your back side of your chain. I'll talk about that a little bit more in later lessons when you're learning how to single crochet and half double crochet and all the other basic stitches. But that's just so you know that this is the front side of the chain and this is the back side of it. And there you go. I'll show you a few common mistakes here of what yours might look like when you first start out, and just know that it's completely normal. So this is what a chain looks like when you have good tension. All the chains look uniform. So if my hook were to be a little bit too loose, I had too much of a gap in between here, I'll show you what that might look like. Or if I'm just not holding it really quite correctly, you might lose your thread around here. And then if you were loose here and then all of a sudden you changed your tension and now it was very tight. And if you ever feel that your crocheting is janky or that it's, you know, very choppy and your hook isn't able to move, that means that your tension is too tight. Just loosen up a little bit and make sure that there's enough space. So now you can kind of see that this isn't very uniform. You have bigger gaps here and smaller gaps here. It's not a uniform chain. So again, here I have just the difference between even tension here. These are all even stitches. And then you can see that there's bigger gaps here. This is tighter and then bigger gaps again. Just keep practicing with your tension, just making sure everything, your hook and your yarn is you're comfortable with it, but that you're able to get the same tension throughout. Whether that's all large or all small, that's fine. Just try to make sure that you're getting a uniform look here, just like on this side. Another part about your chain is going to be counting and identifying what your chains are. So we're going to talk about counting chains. This is super important for following patterns. You will have to be able to count how many stitches you have. So when we count chains, we're not counting this loop on the hook. Okay? This right here would be a chain, but the loop on the hook is called a working loop. That is not an actual stitch yet. So we would start counting from the first chain that we made. Okay? So remember I told you about the front and the back side. It's harder to count on the back side here because you see that there's this link in between here. That just makes it a little bit harder to count. So we're counting from the front side. This is the first chain that we worked with, so that's 1. This is 2. This is 3. So you can kind of see here these top loops that we're counting. That's 1. This is 2. This is 3. This is 4, and then so on. So you're counting each one of these little V's. That is a chain. That is how many that you would have here. So, and then again, remember the loop on the hook doesn't count. So you could count all the way up from what we've done, not including the loop there. So that is how you hold your yarn, you hold your hook, you make a slip knot and a chain. So hopefully after this video, you were able to now create a chain. And that is the first step of learning how to crochet. So if you made it this far, congratulations. You've now created a chain. Hopefully you will stick around for my next videos. This is part 1 in a 5-part series. Next, I will be showing you how to single crochet. That is a type of stitch. It is the most basic stitch in crochet, and I'll be showing you how to do that. But in the meantime, just keep practicing making these chains until it feels more comfortable. You can make them, you can try making them loose when they're like this, so you can see how that feels, and then make them tight, see how that feels, and then try to go in between to get a good tension. So just keep practicing. Practice makes perfect. Don't worry if they're not perfect at first. It takes a lot of practice for that to happen. So just be patient with it. It might take a lot of time. It definitely took me a lot of time to learn how to create the right tension. That's the hardest part about crochet. And if you made this far and you were able to get that, then congratulations, that's a great job. But in our next video, I will teach you how to single crochet stitches into these chains. So thank you for learning with me, and I will see you in the next tutorial.